Hey book besties, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ashley, I go by Little Cozy Reader, and I am so glad you're here. On today's video, on the final day of Bookmas, we are going to be talking about my 6-star reads from 2024. I am so excited to make this video. This is one of my favorite things ever, to talk about the peak cream of the crop books that I read this year, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So let's dive in. So as I'm filming this, it is still the middle of December, so there are like 2.5-ish weeks left of reading for 2024. Is there a chance I'm still gonna have a 6-star book? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I hope that I will. But as of right now, I'm on track to read about 215 books this year. And of those 215 books so far, I have only had 6-star books. So I did have to do quite a bit of narrowing down, sort of evaluating my 5 stars that I've given over the course of the year. And I think that I have it narrowed down to a pretty solid list of my peak recommendations. If I were to recommend any books that I read out of the 215 this year, these 6 absolutely take the cake. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I don't know if you all can see him back there, but he will not stop. Him named Pumpkin. He have one brain cell because he orange boy. Anyways. Alright, so we are going to go in the order that I read these this year. I think that's going to make the most sense. So we're going to start with the ones that I read furthest back in the year and go up to my most recent 6-star read. I think that's the plan. So, the first 6-star read that I had this year was actually all the way back in January, and I was debating. So on my 5 stars, I'm just going to be frank with you all. I have every single book in this series that is out on my 5-star list, which is partly why I decided to make this video my 6-star list. So I had to sit and think which of the books made the 6-star mark. And I have to give it to the first book in the series. This is just the book that started it all. It is the characters that I think about nonstop. It is one of the purest depictions of love and friendship, and just when I think of book couples, this just is at the top of the list, 100%, in their own ways, and all of this will make sense in a moment. But my first 6-star read that I read in January of this year was Pucking Around by Emily Rath. This story and these characters are everything to me. I love every single character in the Jackson Rule Rays universe. I have given, as I said, every single book in the series, novellas, full stories, everything, 5 stars. This series is absolute perfection. I would not change a single thing. And the characters in this one are just what does it for me. To put this as the 6-star, yes, there's something about the fact that this is the book that started it all, but I think more than that, it is the relationship that these 4 individuals have with each other that just does something to my soul and makes me so happy on like a soul deep level. So in this one, we are following Rachel, who is the child of a famous rock star, and she is a physical therapist, and she is working for the Jacksonville Rays hockey team. So this is a brand new NHL team, and she starts out as like a intern apprenticey type of position. So she's like new to the staff, even though they're also new together, but she's like the brand newest person to the team. So anyways, Miss Rachel comes onto the scene, and we also have Caleb. Caleb is our team equipment manager and sort of like team manager kind of person. Caleb is a former NHL player who had an injury and could no longer play, and his best friend, Jake, is one of the star players on the team, right? He is like your team captain, golden retriever to the nth degree. Jake is just chef's kiss perfection. And then we have Elmari, who is just everything you could ever want in a man. Elmari Kinnunen has my heart, my soul, my arms, my legs. He has everything. I love this man. I love Ilmari Kinnunen. And he is our goalie, our big, strong, broody Finnish goalie who is just peak perfection. And so we have Rachel enter the scene. She actually had a one-night stand with Jake, unbeknownst to herself, had a one-night stand with Jake at a wedding back a few months ago in Seattle. And so when she shows up and sees Jake, it is quite the surprise because she has not been able to stop thinking about him since this one-night stand. And so they just sort of immediately hit it off, sort of fall back into things. But of course, she's also sort of hit it off with Caleb because she is living next door to Caleb in the team housing. And there's some shenanigans that take place at the beginning of the book. I'll leave that one for you to find out. And so she sort of hits it off with him. And then she realizes Jake is in the picture. And Jake and Caleb are super competitive to begin with. They're best friends. Everybody calls them life partners. They are, of course, more than that to each other. They just have not recognized it yet. And so they just have this competition essentially going on, trying to make each other angry and stoke the flames, per se. And flames do get stoked. And then, of course, we have Ilmari in the picture who is injured and trying to hide it from Rachel so that he doesn't get benched because he is also being scouted for the Finnish Olympic team. He's also very stereotypically superstitious, and Rachel accidentally sits next to him on the plane before one of his best games, and so she is now forced to sit next to him every game on the plane, and so they begin to bond as well, and the story progresses from there. Of course, this is a poly romance, this is a bisexual awakening romance, this is everything. And when I tell you again that these characters have my heart and my soul, I have really genuinely never read a romance series before where I felt such a strong sense of connection to the characters. They're everything to me. So is this why I choose? Is this spicy as all get out? Yes, it is. So I understand why this is not everyone's cup of tea. Please check trigger warnings. However, if you think this could even remotely be for you, please read this series. It is so good. Emily Rath is a phenomenal author. And this series, again, every single book, 5 stars. But Pucking Around, it will just always have a special place in my heart. Speaking of incredible series, where every book in the series is 5 stars, luckily this one I get to include the whole thing because there's an omnibus, and that is the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. This is a book you're going to see on a lot of people's top lists. This book is everything it is cracked up to be. It is phenomenal. So this book, we're following Lana Myers, who is, as everyone is saying, one of the best FMCs to ever exist. She is savage. She is smart. She is stunningly beautiful, and she is everything. And she is out to get revenge on every man who's ever done her wrong. And when I tell you that they have done her wrong, they have done her wrong. So this is peak, we support women's rights, but we more support women's wrongs. That is 100% the theme for this story, and Miss Lana Myers can do no wrong. So we're following Lana on this revenge journey, and she is a serial unaliver. So we have Miss Boothang, serial unaliving all of these horrendous men, and we love to see that for her. And then her love interest is so wonderful, and he is the FBI agent on her case. He is assigned to track her down, and he do be tracking her down in the bedroom. He track her down in the bedroom, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know who she is. So they have this interesting relationship, to say the least. So we have serial unaliver, FBI agent assigned to her case. And as we get closer and closer to the truth, he starts to grapple with, can he take her down, or should he join the fight? So, y'all, when I tell you it's so good, it is technically speaking a series of 5 novellas. However, it is typically sold in an omnibus. But you can get the novellas to read them individually as well. And I cannot recommend the series enough. Every single novella ends on a massive cliffhanger. So it definitely keeps you reading the series for sure. But 100% worth it. Instant 6-star read. The hype is 1,000,000% worth it. And Lana Myers will forever just be a character that I'm obsessed with. Get it, girl. Next up is a book that I read in February. So those two were in January. Now we're moving into February. I started off the year really strong. And this is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This book, y'all, everything to me. Everything to me. When I tell you I felt every emotion under the sun reading this book, and I really thought probably about 40% of the way through this book, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't think I like this book, but it's Tia Williams, and I'm going to trust her because Miss Tia Williams also wrote 7 Days in June. In case that name sounds familiar to you and you don't know why, she wrote 7 Days in June, which is widely acclaimed and one of the most incredible, deep, emotional romances you'll ever read. That's her stuff, okay? When I tell you that that's what she knows, that's her bread and butter, this was no exception. So in this story, we are following what I'm going to call a dual timeline, okay? So we're following Ricky Wilde. And Ricky Wilde is trying to get out from under her family's thumb, right? They're rich. She doesn't want anything to do with that lifestyle anymore. She wants to go own a flower shop. And her family doesn't support that. So she goes and she opens the flower shop. Now, it happens to be in Harlem, in this little building in Harlem. And she opens her flower shop and she meets this man. And she sees him in the park and they start to form a little bit of a relationship. In our dual timeline, this is taking place in the Harlem Renaissance. And we follow our character who's going through his life and his engagement. And I don't want to give away too much because this story really takes you on a journey. And I think that going through all of the ups and downs of the journey are worth it. And so I want you to go in as blind as possible. But just know that if I were to describe this book in tropes, it would be, it's always been you. It's you in every universe. Black joy, black excellence, black love. If you enjoy the Harlem Renaissance, that plays a huge part in this book. And if you enjoy elements of like Ashley Poston's writing, magical realism, highly recommend. Things like Casey McQuiston, One Last Stop vibes. If you like that, highly recommend. The story had me feeling every type of way under the sun. I was crying. I was laughing and giggling and kicking my feet. I was everything. This story had me sobbing at the end. I distinctly remember listening to the end of this book and sobbing in my car, in my driveway. That was embarrassing. So please, 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 highly recommend A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. Next up, as a 6-star read, this probably comes as a surprise to you, no one, but maybe some, because while this series is a beloved series, the series as a whole, not a 5-star for me. And most of the books in the series sit around a 4.5 star for me. But I must give credit where credit is due. A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, 6-star read. 6-star read. Now, I know we have problems with Miss Maas as a person, so I'm not going to spend too long on this book. This book is popular enough. You know what you know about this book. But I will say, in terms of conclusions to a series, epic battle scenes, included character arcs that had me feeling every emotion under the sun, 100% worth the 6 stars that I'm giving it right now. I, very similar to the last one, felt every emotion under the sun reading this book. I thought some of the ways that character arcs concluded were brilliant. And I do think that this book made up for the lackluster first 2 books for me. So I'm giving ACOWAR 6 stars. And if you want to fight with someone, fight your mama. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, 2 more. We're heading down a couple months now because I didn't have another 6-star read. I had a lot of 5-star reads, but I did not have another 6-star read until I want to say this was July or August. And that, my friends, is Rope Me In by Kayla Gross. This is book 2 in the Cowboys of Nighthawk series, and this book is everything to me. This book is the blueprint for cowboy romance. This book is the blueprint for if he wanted to, he would. This book is the blueprint for plus-size anxiety, depression, grief, alcoholism, representation, schmink. I loved the genuine authenticity that I felt from this story. The story did not feel like a silly, goofy romance, but yet at times it did. This story felt like so much more. I absolutely adored these two characters. They were so real with each other. The communication in this story, top notch. The way that Cade Montgomery was able and willing to deal with his emotions, not something you see in every day. Definitely not. Especially when you're talking about cowboy romance, right? This is a genre where the men are typically emotionally stunted, because that's kind of reality. But the way that this story dealt with such heavy topics was so, so well done that it just put it miles and above a typical rom-com, your typical cowboy romance. So in this story, we're following Cade Montgomery, and he is the younger brother to Gavin, who is the brother in the first book, and Gavin is sort of the penultimate older sibling, right? Very protective, very in charge of things, very well known in the community, all of those sorts of things. Cade has always been considered the goof off, and he's embraced that, right? He is the town womanizer. He works at the bar, gets drunk at the bar, plays at the bar, all that sort of stuff. He's embraced this playboy image of himself, and his father has passed away, leaving the ranch to his older brother. And we find out in the story that the ranch was promised to him, that he was the one who was supposed to get the ranch, because Gavin never wanted that for himself. Gavin wanted to travel, and it was supposed to go to Cade, but it did not happen in time before his father passed. And now the ranch is in financial hardships. Gavin still has it in his mind that Cade is a playboy and doesn't want to do anything serious. And so Gavin takes it upon himself to figure things out and to hide things about the financial situation that the ranch is in. And when Cade finds out, he's upset and wants to help and wants to be involved and wants to change his image and just doesn't quite know how. And then we enter our FMC, who is dealing with the breakup from her, rock star is not the word I want to use here, because she plays the fiddle, but her musician ex-boyfriend, who has done a number on her self-image, her self-worth, her anxiety, all of these sorts of things. And so she is just rolling into town trying to fly under the radar. She does not want to be noticed. She just wants to exist and find herself again. And lo and behold, she starts to fall for the playboy. They are at the bar together. She ends up helping out on the ranch, and she starts to see this playboy image come down and get to know the real Cade. And he starts to get to know that she's not just the city slicker that he thinks she is, and that maybe a life in the country could be for her. So highly recommend. There are some scenes in this book that will just always stick with me in terms of their raw emotion, and there are some scenes that will stick with me for things like rope play and bondage and other fun things, because if there's one thing Miss Kayla Gross knows how to write, it's some spice. But I think that was part of the reason why I loved this book too. This series is really Kayla showing off that she's not just a spicy author. Like, Homegirl came at it with the Abby Jimenez, Emily Henry level of emotion and romance in here. So highly, highly recommend. It is book 2 in the series. You do got to read them in order to really get the full impact of this series. So definitely start with Rein Me In, which is Gavin's book. It's phenomenal as well. I gave it a 4.75, so we're sitting right up there. But Rope Me In is for sure my favorite and definitely a 6-star read. And lastly, we have All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. This book I just read 2 months ago, and I have talked about it recently in some videos, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. But this is the book on the list that I believe should be required reading in school. This is the book on the list that I believe should be required reading to be a functioning adult in society. This tells the story. It's hard to even put into words. It tells the story of Muslim Americans and the realities that they face in nearly every aspect of our society every day. it is a timely story. It is a story that is meant to fill you with every emotion under the sun, because these characters go through everything you can think of. And it is a story that should be taken very seriously. Literature is art, and art reflects reality. And so this is a work of fiction only in the sense that these specific characters do not exist. These realities very much exist. These injustices, these inequities very much exist. These events happen every day, for better or for worse. And it is very eye-opening, to say the least. I believe this book is technically a YA, and that is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, technically speaking, it fits in that category, like, spice-wise, for sure. But when I think about stories that changed my brain chemistry, All My Rage is 100% on that list. It is a book I can for sure see myself going back to reread. It is beautifully written. It is poignant. It is emotional. It is frustrating. It is empowering in the sense that it leaves you wanting to make change. So if you have not read it yet, it is wildly acclaimed as well, has won many awards. It was just a book that I had not gotten around to yet, to be frank. And if you are in the same boat as me, get around to it. 100% get around to it, because it is worth every page, every tear, every laugh, every rage emotion. It is worth it. Because it's reality, whether we want to admit it or not. So definitely a 6-star read, definitely the heaviest of the reads that I have listed here, but 100,000,000% should be required reading, in my opinion. On a lighter note, those are all of my 6-star reads that I've had so far in 2024. As I mentioned, I have had a ton of 5-star reads. 2024 has been a phenomenal reading year for me, and it is wild that I'm on track to hit probably around 215 books before the end of the year. I set my reading goal at 200 thinking there was a chance that maybe I could hit it, but we are probably cruising quite past that at this point, which is so exciting. So thank you so much for sticking around and making this channel everything that it has been this year. I'm excited to see what 2025 will bring us. Thank you for sticking around through Bookmas. It is insane to me that we are at the end and that I have posted every single day for the last 12 days. But with that, I'm going to take a much needed break from YouTube posting, and I'm going to catch up on everyone else's Bookmas videos. So with that being said, if you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so I don't miss you in 2025. Bye!